Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order here this evening for November 26, 2012 at 7 o'clock. And here comes John. We'll give him 2 seconds here before
You're
we...
gonna be in the minutes next month.
Oh, I saw it. I won't do that to you, John, don't worry.
So if anyone has a cell phone and has it on, please turn it off, please. Having said that, we will quickly do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Welcome everyone to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this stage, Mr. Adams would do roll call, please.
Sure. Barnett?
Here.
Champlin?
Here.
Van Lente?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Peterson?
Here.
Schichtel? Joe will be absent tonight. Greg?
Here.
Fent? Putvin?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. If everyone has their packets, I'm sure. Looking for now an approval of tonight's agenda here again for November 26, 2012.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
David firsted it and Mr. Peterson, I think, second, yes? Okay.
Okay, motion to approve tonight's agenda as printed. Greg?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Champlin?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yes.
Putvin.
Yes,
The agenda is approved.
thank you. Next on our agenda, if there is any public comment this evening from our audience, as long as it's not something that's on our agenda, please feel free to tell us all about it, or not. Okay, moving right along. Next, looking for an approval here of our last meeting, which remind everybody was September 24th, 2012. We did not have a session here in October. In case you missed us, we weren't here. Looking for approval of those minutes, again, September 24th.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 24th.
Second.
Seconded by Dave again,
Okay,
Mr.
motion
Barnett.
to
and Mr.
approve the
Francis.
meeting minutes of 9/24/2012 as presented. Barnett?
Yes.
Champlin?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And Putvin.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you. Tonight we do have a public hearing. So we have a request here from Joshua and Elizabeth Winkleman to operate a group daycare home license for a capacity of 12 children at 623 Linden Street. This is support document 4A in everyone's packet. Having read that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As indicated, tonight's request is for a special land use application to establish or operate, I should say, a group daycare facility or center or home at 623 Linden Street. Mrs. Winkleman, Elizabeth, is here tonight, so if she has any additional information she wants to add after the staff presentation, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to do so. I'm going to let Brian Schweigel, I think most of you know Brian, hopefully all of you know Brian. Brian works for the city, with the Community Development Department, and works with me, and from time to time Brian will be filling in for me, not too often hopefully, but I thought it was a good idea if perhaps he presented this particular application tonight. You've gone through special land use applications in the past for group daycare facilities, and so this one, and I believe Brian will probably reiterate this in a second, but we haven't had any public communications, any public calls, any comments either for or against, so it appears to be a very non-controversial type of application. So he's going to basically follow the format that we've followed in the past. I told him he can take 2 to 3 hours, and I'm kidding. And so I may jump in once in a while, but Brian, why don't you go ahead up to the podium and take over?
Hey, hi everybody.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
All right, as Jerry said, this is a special land use application for 623 Linden Street. And I'll just basically be going over the staff report and some of the attachments that you've received in the packet. The applicants, as we said, are Joshua and Elizabeth Winkleman of 623 Linden Street in Cadillac. In addition to the staff report that you received, you also received the application, the narrative submitted with the application, an area map, a site map, some site photos that were taken on November 7th, and then a map of all the registered group child care homes in Cadillac. The applicants are seeking to operate a group child care home at the residence, 623 Linden Street. The applicants currently operate a family child care home licensed for up to 6 children, and a group child care home, which is what they're seeking, that is licensed by the state, would allow up to 12 children. Group child care homes are considered a special land use under the Cadillac zoning ordinance, and so approval of special land uses such as this one is left up to the Planning Commission. As far as the neighborhood goes, it's primarily single-family residential. It's zoned R2, one-family residential district. The Cadillac Area Public Schools, the CAPS Clubhouse, which provides child care services for school-age children before, during, and after school hours, and Cadillac High School are located to the southeast of the subject site. And here's a map of the area. It's a little bit difficult to see on the screen, but the parcel highlighted in yellow there is 623 Linden Street, our subject site tonight. To the southeast there is the CAPS Clubhouse, and further to the southeast toward the bottom right corner is Cadillac High School. As far as the site itself, it's got an area of 9,339 square feet, just over 1/5 of an acre. The property has 66 feet of frontage along Linden Street and a depth of about 141.5 feet. The subject property has a 2-story single-family dwelling, an attached 2-car garage, and a concrete paved driveway. The rear yard of the property is fully enclosed by a 6-foot privacy fence, and the rear yard has an area of 5,085 square feet. And those two items bring it into compliance with that section of the Cadillac zoning ordinance, which requires a minimum of 5,000 square feet of outdoor play space that's either fenced or screened from adjoining lots. And here's a map of the site itself, particularly the outdoor play space in the rear of the yard. Again, the parcel is highlighted in yellow, and the brown line is where the fence is located. The fence was installed more recently than this aerial photograph was taken. That's why the brown line is there, as opposed to just letting you see where the fence is, because it wasn't there when this was taken. For visual reference, here's some site photos that were taken on November 7th. This is the front elevation of the house. This would be the east side, facing Linden Street. Here's the back of the house, the west side, facing the alleyway. Here's a view of the rear yard and the play area. This was taken in the northeast corner of the rear yard. Here's the play equipment in the rear yard. This photo was taken from the southeast corner. And here's the north property line. This photo was taken from the alleyway, so it kind of gives you a sense of the site's appearance from adjoining properties. As far as group child care homes, there are currently 5 registered group child care homes in Cadillac. The straight line distance between 623 Linden and the nearest of the 5 existing homes is about 4/10 of a mile. And we're not aware of any neighborhood issues or complaints associated with any of those existing homes. And the most recent group child care home was approved by the Planning Commission in August of 2012. Here's a map of the existing group child care homes, the existing registered group child care homes. Those 5 are represented by the blue asterisks, and 623 Linden Street. Tonight's subject property is represented by the red asterisk. So it kind of gives you a sense for the space between the 623 Linden Street and the nearest existing registered group childcare home. So as far as your determination tonight, the Cadillac zoning ordinance provides that in approving a special land use, the Planning Commission shall employ the following review standards to ensure that the proposed use is compatible with the site upon which the use will be located and the surrounding neighborhood. And the zoning ordinance also provides that the Planning Commission may impose conditions with the approval of a special land use application which are necessary to ensure compliance with the following standards and any other applicable standards contained in this or other applicable ordinances and regulations. Such conditions shall be considered an integral part of the special land use. So the first review standard is that the special land use shall be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner harmonious with the character of adjacent property and the surrounding area. And our staff comments related to the first review standard are that the dwelling will retain its single-family residential appearance and continue to be used as a residence by the applicants, and also that the site contains an attached two-car garage along with parking space for 2 additional vehicles in the driveway. Additional staff comments. The applicants currently employ a next-door neighbor as a part-time employee. The neighbor will be employed full-time if their application is successful, and they may hire a second part-time employee. At this time, we're unaware of any neighborhood issues or complaints regarding the existing licensed group child care homes in the city, as I said before. The second review standard is that the special land use shall not inappropriately change the essential character of the surrounding area. And our staff comments are that the special land use is not anticipated to inappropriately change the essential character of the surrounding area. The character of the surrounding area, as I said before, is single-family residential. And again, the CAPS Clubhouse and Cadillac High School are located to the southeast of the site. The subject property is currently licensed as a family child care home and, to our knowledge, hasn't resulted in any reported or known neighborhood issues or complaints. The third review standard is that the special land use shall not interfere with the general enjoyment of adjacent property. And staff comments that the proposed use is not anticipated to significantly interfere with the general enjoyment of adjacent property. It may result in minor increases in noise during the day as the children play outdoors, but we don't anticipate that it would greatly exceed the noise levels typically already found in the neighborhood. Review standard 4, the special land use shall represent an improvement to the use or character of the property under consideration and the surrounding area in general, yet also be in keeping with the natural environment of the site. And our staff comment is that use of the property as a group child care home is not anticipated to represent an improvement to the property and the surrounding area, but nor is it anticipated to negatively impact the area. Review standard 5, the special land use shall not be hazardous to adjacent property or involve uses, activities, materials, or equipment which will be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of persons or property through the excessive production of traffic, noise, odor, fumes, or glare. And our staff comment, I won't read the whole thing, but that it's not anticipated to do any of those things. Review standard 6, the special land use shall be adequately served by essential public facilities and services, or it shall be demonstrated that the person responsible for the proposed special land use shall be able to continually provide adequately for the services and facilities deemed essential for the special land use under consideration. And our staff comment is that the subject property is served by sanitary sewer, municipal water, natural gas main, electric, cable, municipal police and fire protection, and also that the group child care home is subject to state inspection and licensing. Number 7, the special land use shall not place demands on public services and facilities in excess of current capacity. And Our comment is that the proposed special land use is not anticipated to to place demands on public services and facilities in excess of current capacity. Review Standard 8, the special land use shall be consistent with the intent and purpose of this chapter and the objectives of the currently adopted long-range comprehensive plan. Chapter 6 of the Master Plan Objectives provides for special land uses in single-family residential districts, subject to demonstration that said uses will not disrupt the residential integrity of the neighborhood in which they are placed. And the final review standard is that outdoor play areas must be secured by a fence with a minimum height of 30 inches or an equivalent structure such that children will be deterred from unauthorized access to adjacent streets, alleys, or other locations which may pose a safety threat, as well as protecting adjoining property. Landscaping may also be used in place of a structure, provided said landscaping is determined by the Planning Commission to be of a character suitable to achieve the desired level of security. And in this case, the site's outdoor play area is enclosed by a privacy fence with a height of 6 feet. A notice of this special land use application and the public hearing was placed in the Cadillac News, and it was mailed to owners of all property located within 300 feet of the subject property. The notices were mailed and placed in the paper not less than 15 days prior to this hearing, and as of this time, no communications, written or verbal, have been received regarding this special land use application. So as far as Planning Commission action, based on a determination of compliance with the standards of Section 46-747, the Planning Commission shall approve with conditions, or deny the special land use application of the applicant to operate a group childcare home at 623 Linden Street. Here's a site map again. Are there any questions at this time for me?
Everybody good?
Nope.
Excellent job,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess I'll just open public hearing, and then that way if Elizabeth wants to come up, is that all right with you, Mr. Adams?
That's perfect, sir.
Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. So anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward and state your name and address for us.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Elizabeth Winkleman, 623 Linden Street. Been doing my family daycare for a little over a year now. Used to work for a daycare over in Lake George for about 3 years. So once we bought a house, that's been my plan forever now, and I'm just hoping to expand, and hope you guys give me that opportunity.
Okay. Any questions for Miss Elizabeth? But Brian covered everything, but.
Really, it's kind of a classic.
Huh? I drove by, you got a nice fence now.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just because we have to, is in case anyone is hiding in our audience and wish to speak against this proposal this evening, please come forwards, but there being none, we will go ahead at this time and close public hearing. And the board will discuss this, but for once, they meet all the requirements. That's cool. Yes, sir.
Maybe if Elizabeth wouldn't mind, just a couple of questions for the record and the board's.
Sure.
How many days a week do you plan on operating?
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, okay. And hours of operation, general hours of operation?
I have, my earliest kid is like 5:15 in the morning when they get dropped off. And then my latest is about 6:30.
Okay, all right. Very good, thank you.
Yep.
So a little before and a little after what we had to look at.
Yeah.
Ours said 6 to 6.
6 to
so-
6, yeah.
Okay.
Those are my set hours. You gotta take them when you can.
So you're up before light and you're done after light. Dark and dark.
Time change is killing me.
Yeah.
And for the benefit of the Planning Commission, again, Brian briefly mentioned this, but the operation is subject to state licensing, And we will, if this is approved, we will be required to fill out a form, for example, indicating that it has received city approval, that in turn will be passed on to the state of Michigan, so.
Thank you. Again, to me, this is, wow, they got the yard, they got the fence. They even got noise already built in around them. That they do.
Clean and straightforward.
Yes, to me. So, I'd entertain a motion if anybody is in that
I'll make
mode.
the motion to pass this special land use permit.
For reasons for Mr. Adams.
Oh, so it complies with the standards?
Perfect.
Okay with that, sir?
Perfect.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Smith, second. Roll call, please.
Okay, any discussion? I guess not. Okay. The motion by Champlin, supported by Smith, to approve the group daycare operation at 623 Linden, based on a finding of compliance with the standards of the ordinance. Okay, and a yes or a yay is a vote of approval. Smith?
Yes.
Barnett?
Yay.
Peterson?
Yes.
Van Lente?
Yes.
Champlin?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Putvin?
Yes.
It's approved.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you, young lady.
Good luck to you.
You are welcome to stay if you want to hear our stuff, or
I go home and enjoy my children.
Collapse.
enjoy your little bit of privacy, yes.
Yeah, they don't get much just mom time anymore.
Okay, let's see, new business. None. Old business, God, we know this one. Off-premise signs. Review of a rough draft of proposed revisions to section 46-664 of the Cadillac zoning ordinance. Everyone, this is support document 6A in our packets. And Mr. Adams
Thank you.
has already got us up on the boards.
On the board. Okay, I want to go through this rather quickly. You've seen some of this before, and it's a condensed version with some modifications of a presentation that we did earlier. As you know, the issue is that of off-premise signs, and as the chair indicated, off-premise signs are governed by section 46-664 of the Cadillac zoning ordinance. Before I get into that, however, and I was hoping Mr. Schichtel would be here tonight, but it was Mr. Schichtel's request, Chairman Schichtel's request, or Commissioner Schichtel's request, you may recall. He asked us, well, what about the possibility of having some sort of a community sign in the downtown that could be with changeable copy, and maybe an electronic type sign that we could change periodically to announce not only community events, but other events or activities as well, such as the farm market, shoreline vendors, and so forth. Well, we have looked at that, and we're continuing to look at that. The issues we face are, in our core downtown, there just are not, there's not a good location. Probably the best location in terms of open space for placement of the sign is a modification of the clock tower area. The biggest issue there, however, is also one of the busiest intersections, both from the standpoint of vehicular traffic as well as pedestrian traffic. And there's some real concern in particular by the sign contractor or developer that having a sign like this could essentially cause people to pay more attention to the sign and not what they should be doing, driving properly or watching out for traffic. So there just aren't other locations. So we're still exploring the possibility of and I'm not suggesting it'll be this sign, obviously, but we're still exploring the possibility of some sort of signage in the downtown that can be used. I didn't want you to think we forgot about this, so we haven't. Again, an off-premise sign, very quickly. The ordinance defines off-premise advertising, or an off-premise advertising sign as any sign erected for the purpose of advertising a business, product, event, person, or subject not relating to the premises on which the sign is located. For example, if this particular sign was located in downtown on Mitchell Street, hypothetical or theoretical, Sam's Bait and Tackle, 1000 Stanton Road, open such and such, 1 mile north. Okay, if this were placed, for example, at the corner of Cass and Mitchell, this would be considered an off-premise sign because there's not an abutting, in the case of our ordinance, Sam's is not abutting the sign, so to speak. But it's referring to a business operation, in this case, that's located elsewhere. Under the current ordinance, with council approval, the ordinance does allow certain off-premise signs to be located, to encroach, you might say, in the public right-of-way. And again, let's focus on the downtown. That is, it allows, the council is allowed, for example, to permit the placement of, for example, the farm market signs in the past on the sidewalks at the intersections in the downtown, or perhaps at special event signs recognizing some faith-based activity. Perhaps it's recognizing something to do with United Way or some other activity or operation. Under the current ordinance, in order for the City Council to allow for the placement of off-premise signs, the ordinance states that the activities and the events associated with that sign must be associated with governmental and nonprofit agencies. And I mentioned, for example, the farm market. Well, the farm market has been allowed to place signs on Mitchell Street for a long period of time. However, it's been determined they don't comply with either of these criteria. They're not governmental, nor are they nonprofit. And very importantly, the signs must convey information considered to be of general public interest. There are some exceptions in the B2 district if you have a business downtown, but we won't cover those right now. In terms of where signs might be placed, whether it's in the downtown or other locations throughout the city, those governmental or nonprofit signs, council has authorization or the ability to allow them to be placed temporarily on downtown sidewalks, at intersections, other public streets and intersection locations, or other public street sidewalks, I should say, and intersection locations, tree lawn areas in certain locations of the city parks. For example, occasionally the city will allow signs to be placed either in the city parks or on the green belts associated with the city parks. And other city property can be used for signs. However, I can't think of a request that's been made for other city properties, not in recent years. In the B2 district, the downtown district, if you are a downtown business, you can place a temporary sandwich board type sign in front of your business on the sidewalk by right. Council approval is not required, and we're not dealing with those signs tonight. And the big issue is, should the ordinance allow the opportunity for those other than associated with the government, be it city, state, county, federal government, or those that aren't nonprofit? In other words, should private parties, for example, other businesses, commercial entities, other private parties, and so forth, should they be given some opportunity to place signs within the public right-of-way, be it downtown or elsewhere? And here probably are the two most infamous signs that we've been dealing with. The farm market sign across the street, again, not associated with a governmental activity or is not associated with a nonprofit organization. And then Louis' Lunch on the Lake, currently, again, it's a private operation. We're looking at these types of signs. It would be these as well as others that would potentially come into play. And as you know, we've been looking at a lot of options, and essentially what it seems to be boiling down to is this, is if you want to recommend that the ordinance be amended, essentially what's being considered, and what's being considered is that we would provide all parties, regardless of who they are, the opportunity to place temporary signs in the public right-of-way of both all office and commercial districts throughout the city, except the B2 district, where we would limit those signs to certain intersections. And this was a recommendation, or this was a suggestion, I should say, that the Planning Commission made. Most of these types of signs the requests are for the core downtown area. Once in a while, we'll get requests for other locations, other commercial districts, and other office districts. Those are very limited, tend not to be much of an issue, really. They very seldom happen. But in the downtown, they happen quite often. And at your suggestion, we did identify 3 intersections where we have the most requests for signs that are not associated with governmental agencies or nonprofits. Those are Pine Street, the Pine-Mitchell intersection, the Cass Street-Mitchell intersection, and the Chapin-Mitchell Street intersection. I don't know if I've got more on this. If not, I'll come back. Well, there they are right there. The Pine Street intersection is the top one, the Cass Street is the middle one, and the Chapin Street is the lower one. In terms of the Pine Street intersection, where we get a fair number of requests is for activities that happen at the high school, for example. Now, a lot of those are associated with governmental or nonprofit, I should say. But that seems to be a fairly an intersection where we do receive a fair number of requests. Cass Street is probably the most sought-after intersection. And that's the one, for example, that is sought out by the farm market, by shoreline vendors, and get a lot of requests, for example, from the vendors or activities going on at the WEX. They want to place a sign there. And part of that's due to the fact that Cass Street East Division ultimately is also M55 East. And then the third most popular intersection is the Chapin Street intersection. And I think probably the reason for that is it's really the first street that you come to where people can turn. I mean, I know you can turn before that, where they do turn, for example, to go to shoreline types of activities or events, be it the farm market, be it the city park, and so forth. A lot of times people will turn at Chapin instead of going all the way to Cass. So there's a fair amount of interest in those 3 intersections. So if the Planning Commission wanted to recommend the placement of off-premise signs for any party in the downtown, those would probably be the 3 best intersections. Now, obviously, you can say, we'll open it up to every intersection, or if you so wish, you can say, no, we only want to identify one or 2 intersections. In the case of, be it these 3 intersections or all intersections, as you know, there's a further stipulation in that if you want to place a sign, for example, at the Cass Street intersection, or if it's allowed in the future, it also has to meet MDOT requirements in terms of setbacks. Signs cannot be placed as close to the traveled portion of the intersection, the vehicular traveled portion, to the streets that they have been in the past. MDOT wants them out of the what we call the clear vision zone. So there's that restriction as well. Let's stop right there for a second and just talk about it before I go on. I don't have too many more slides, but I'm open for suggestions. We have not abandoned the possibility of developing some sort of consistent wayfinding signs that might be erected in the future in the downtown, such as on the existing light poles. It's a complicated activity because, number one, there's a big investment to be made. Secondly, once you do something, I'm not saying it's permanent, but it's fairly permanent. And so we want to make the right decisions. And so we haven't forgotten the other possibilities that could happen in the future. But I know you want to move this along, as does other folks. And even though winter's coming upon us, it will be spring before you know it, and there will be requests by different parties to have signs in place. And as you know, it takes several months to go through the process of actually adopting amendments to the zoning ordinance. So I'm open for any questions you might have.
How about a reader board on each one of those intersections?
How about a leaderboard?
A reader board.
A reader board.
Where you could slide your name in.
And it's a wayfinding kind of and we're looking at that. We're looking at the possibility of reader boards, similar to what you're saying. In some cases, basically in all cases, they would identify locations or activities that are off of the main drag, so to speak. For example, the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion is this way. It would attract you or help you wayfind, locate other facilities and services. The issues that we're dealing with is identifying which ones should we identify. And then secondly, in terms of designing or developing signs that would allow us to replace, you might say, boards. Again, how detailed, how specific do we get? Do we say just shoreline vendors, or do we say, Jerry's Lunch on the Lake?
I would limit it to a seasonal business.
And that's a possibility as well. We're also looking at banners. So we haven't forgotten any of the other opportunities or possibilities. It's just it's a complex. We want to make the right decision. And we have a lot of other parties that are involved in this. We have the DDA, for example, that's involved. We have the Visitors Bureau that's involved. We have a demand, a common demand by individuals to want to change banners and types of exhibits that are placed downtown. For example, council recently approved the placement of a series of banners recognizing Caberfe's 75th anniversary. Caberfet is really, it's a historic feature. I'm not sure you're aware of that, but they're going to be putting, hopefully, banners throughout the downtown, and we're trying to find locations in Cadillac West as well that will be up the entire winter season, December, January, February, possibly March, recognizing Caberfe's 75th birthday. Now those, the text on and the graphics on those signs, by the way, were approved by MDOT. Caberfet was not allowed, for example, to do advertising or to put Caberfet Peaks or Caberfet Resort. It's just Caberfet. But so we get requests like that as well from, we've had several this summer from organizations such as Oasis wanting to put up different exhibits. They put up the T-shirts and so forth. And so we have to think about that as well. It seems like if we do one thing, we have an impact on somebody else, and so it's a tough call.
Jerry, the farmers market has been a real sticking point on this. And what would prevent the farmers market from organizing as a nonprofit to put that event on, similar to the arts fair or somebody else?
It's a possibility. They're aware. The farm market folks are aware of this issue. They've attended.
If they would simply organize as a nonprofit to oversee the event,
right,
similar to the arts festival,
right,
where
right,
it's
right,
a
right, very
nonprofit thing that there's
They
people for profit there.
They could.
That would sort of, if we would just pass without modifying things, that would take care of the issue as I see
It
it.
would take care of an issue.
Yes.
And interestingly, the gentleman with the shoreline vending operation, he too is, attempting to fall under a nonprofit status, and looks like he's going to be successful in doing so.
The farmers are there to sell their goods, though, and that's, they'd have to have that big umbrella, then have a charitable purpose, pick something, and they could only have so much profit on hand. I think if you start getting into profit, though, like the Footlighters weren't allowed to have $25,000 in their bank account. At that point, they lost their nonprofit status.
Right, but
there's some
the group, the overseeing group,
right,
wouldn't have to make a profit. The individuals being there. I mean, obviously, it's for the community good to have those fresh fruits and vegetables down there. And
they'd have to, I think, donate part of their profits to the charitable purpose. My off-the-cuff thought on that.
Does the art fair people have to do that too? Or is that?
They pay a fee, a pretty high fee to be there, which is, sometimes they come out ahead, sometimes they don't. Probably they do, and that's why they come back, but I know they modify a little bit year to year. But they, for the most part, seem to come back. So the fee's not excessive.
But the art fair is a non-profit
Art council.
organization?
Right.
I believe so.
They operate under the umbrella of a non-profit.
There. Right.
Yep.
Because they've got all the subgroups, and so all their money gets divided up amongst the member groups.
Our city, for example, donates 10,000, I think, or less, 8,000 or 7 at this point. It's gone down a little bit to their group, and then they figure out how to divvy it out to the
Right.
different arts groups. But they're always trying to raise money and
Right.
allow people to have deductions. That is the sticking point, and that's what I brought from the council side of this thing, is they are bound and determined to do whatever it takes to keep that group down there and happy, the farmer's market. And that's the problem for whatever comes out of here, is just to let you know they're all gung-ho to do whatever can be done to prevent them from moving, and they've all but told us they're moving if we disallow a sign. They're real nice about it, but, and that's why they're coming to listen to us. And
What aspect in this whole issue have they been willing to move on, other than the fact that if we don't let them have their way, they're moving?
I'm not
I mean,
sure,
have they
actually.
considered the thought of organizing as a nonprofit to kind of help us out, or are they just going to say,
This is where I punt to
we're
Jerry.
picking up our ball and we're going home?
Yep. I don't have contact with them other than what I've heard at meetings, which is limited, and through staff and the concerns and/or thoughts they have or have heard. So that would be a better question for staff.
I'm all about helping people, and I don't want to see the farm market go away, but I personally don't like to deal with people that like to pick up their ball and go home either. You know, it's got to be a compromise between both parties as far as I see it, and if they're not willing to at least try to do something in their structure or help us out, then...
From what I can tell, I think they see it as so important for their existence is to have it out there, that they would maybe move elsewhere to put it out on a Main Street, high-traffic location. That's part of their being, is to have that kind of exposure, and the city's given it to them for 20 years.
And the other thing I did hear her mention, I can't remember, is it, I can't remember her first name.
Jean?
Jean.
It's in our minutes from last.
You know, that there was
September.
another city, was it Luther, or, there was another city just south of here that they have a billboard on the south end of town or the north end of town all year long,
Yeah.
you know?
In Beulah, a person that owns a house just puts one up in their front yard when that thing's open, for example. I've seen that too. Cities have been real cooperative for farmers markets. It's just our situation is they're located right in this high visibility, high traffic, and it's at the top of the list, according to Jerry, for choice locations.
Well, you can't deny that. I mean, it's great. It's great for the city, it's great for the community, it's good for everybody all around.
I just, I was just expressing what I saw as the starting point from the city council. It doesn't matter, you guys should do what you think is right and let them deal with it. But I noted there's a difference in the two boards real quickly, because this board's more cautious about not, violating our code, and I think we've stretched it a little bit at the council just to try it out this summer, and this thing has gone on for 20 years, and we're perplexed as to how to deal with it fairly. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I think, again, just to keep the discussion going, this was an attempt to, after all the discussions we've had, to basically compromise. The two locations to the south, in particular, historically have been used for the placement, in this case, the farm market signs, for years. So it's not as though there haven't been signs placed there in the past. And the Pine Street hasn't been used by the farm market, but it's been used by others. And there is a significant demand that comes before council by individuals wanting to put temporary signs up on Mitchell Street, and this is a way to some degree to restrict, at least prevent a proliferation of signs at every intersection, put them at the intersections that are in most demand. Again, there are controls that have been placed on them if these get approved. This gets approved by MDOT, and I don't see that there's going to be probably what's going to happen is it's going to continue to be, and foremost, the farm markets that's going to want the two southerly locations. And, it depends on whether the shoreline vendor happens again next summer and whether there are others as to, will there be those kinds of demands. But
Has there been any discussion, and I don't know if I'm aware of any, about with the designation of those 3 intersections, are you talking 4 signs at each intersection, 1 on each corner?
it would be possible. It would be possible. We've never had that happen. It would be possible. And that's something, you could limit the number of signs at an intersection to no more than 1 or 2. It really depends on what you want to do. The most I've seen are 2 signs.
But if we approve it, we could open the door for as many as 12.
Now, in case of this summer, for example, Mr. Richardson, who had the Louis Lunch on the Lake, he was willing not to have a sign on the intersection area on the days the farm market had their signs up, which worked out nice. So it would be possible to restrict the number of signs to 1 or 2 intersections, corners, if that was something that you felt was needed.
My biggest fear is I just don't want to see the downtown cluttered with a whole bunch of miscellaneous signs, and that's just me. I don't mind the sandwich boards so much in front of the businesses because I think it kind of is appealing to foot traffic in downtown shopping. It is for me. I'm assuming it would be for others like me. It probably doesn't appeal to some other people also, but to have those main intersections cluttered with just miscellaneous signs but to limit it, to 1 or 2 signs along with a fee. I noticed in here you've suggested a daily fee or.
Oh, yeah, well, the next couple of slides.
Say that.
I'll go to it real quickly.
The intent was more for the board system. At least that was what I.
Some other considerations that, again, didn't know we'd get into this, but the possibility of having staff review, assuming we tighten these things up, having staff review and approve off-premise signs as opposed to council. I don't know if council will buy that or not, but one of the problems with signs is if it goes to council, fortunately council meets they may not like this, Mayor, but they meet twice a month, so it's not like the Planning Commission where you're only meeting once a month, but people, organizations have a tendency to wait till we all do, have a tendency to wait till the last minute, and that can sometimes be an issue. And assuming the standards are in place, there are standards in place, and they're easy to understand. So there's no reason staff couldn't handle this. And then secondly, and perhaps more importantly, is essentially we don't require any fees for off-premise signs anywhere. I shouldn't say that. We haven't, have we? I don't believe for off-premise signs. No. So, that's something that perhaps could be considered as well. To have some sort of fee so that it becomes a little more, hey, if you want to have a sign there, you're going to really want to have that sign, and you're going to pay for the privilege.
Well, along with that fee, you have MDOT requirements for clear vision areas, and who's going to monitor that?
Right.
Is it going to be self-policed, or is a member of city staff going to go down there and make sure?
It's a combination of city and MDOT. MDOT does do some policing, in part because they tend to travel Mitchell Street quite a bit. So it's not that they automatically go out and look for signs, but if they're out, if they see a sign that's in violation, typically they'll either call us and ask us if we know about it, or is there something going on, or they'll pick it up. And they picked up a number. It's similar to us. We try to call the individual if they haven't gotten a permit. If they have received a permit and know better, again, we try to call, and if no action is taken, we'll pick the sign up and keep it and let them know we have the sign, and typically they'll come and pick it up. Not always, but signs are a bane.
I get the feeling from our discussion here that the council wants to protect the farm market
Yes.
and the...
Mostly the farm market. The vendors supported by the farm market, but their heart and soul, they're vegetable crazy, they're very positive, healthy, want good things like this. I mean, it's all for good intentions.
Do you feel that the street vendor can get a nonprofit?
The last, if I might answer that, I did talk with the organization through which he's getting his nonprofit status, and they were very positive that it was going to come through. Now it's totally up to him, so, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Richardson.
Well, what I'm leading up to is when the state of Michigan went into the Sign Control Act in 1969, I believe it was, that there was a number of signs already in existence that did not meet the criteria of the new sign law. And they were indicated to be non-conforming and could stay until such time as they were bought out or the business went out or whatever. And if that might be a possibility of setting up those three intersections with the farm market as a non-conforming sign, but because of experience over the years that felt it should continue. But put a covenant in there that indicates that should they move, that is no longer open to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Shepherd's Tables was another one that would fit in that category. This vendor, Mr. Scarborough, owned it, I think, for 16 years. I think it's been there 23 years now in the city, but not with the signs on the street, though. Those just came this year or last year, depending on what was permitted. I think the heart and soul of the council has been, from what I've heard, is for the farmers market, and not so much either the Shepherd's Table. The conundrum is, what's good, the goose should be good for the gander. The goose has had a sign up for 20 years, and actually in violation of our code, and the gander stepped forward and said, hey, then I guess I should be able to have one too, is that right? And that's where it got, we took a closer look, and there's a non-compliance, and now what to do as we move forward. And then you look closer, there's the Shepherd's Table that's been doing it. I don't know if they asked permission, but they were, being professional about it, and it hadn't caused problems, but probably, if not most definitely.
There again, they could possibly fit on the deal with nonprofit.
Yeah.
Then you have the Red Cross too, and that's nonprofit, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if you have per se, a couple of spots on there already taken, now all of a sudden you have a blood drive, and because they're a nonprofit, they're allowed. So now you have another sign up there.
They've been going on Pine Street historically, I think, over in the Armory, but.
Yep, I have seen them on Cass, right by the movie theater also. And typically on Pine Street, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's just what I think fairness is what the council wants, but they're just, I would guess a majority would be wanting to do whatever is possible to continue having the farmers market in our downtown area.
I guess, I just don't see any way of doing this without allowing a proliferation of signs. And I think, as you sit here and think about it, I mean, all the farmers market has to do is become a nonprofit, get MSU Extension to sponsor the farmers market. I mean, we're changing our whole ordinance for one organization. And there's ways government and nonprofits can be allowed a sign. So I just think it would be easier for the farmers market to somehow move into one of those I mean, I don't think, from what I've heard, they haven't looked to try and change to conform to the ordinance, which, if they really investigated it, I think there would be a number of options available to them. And so we're kind of trying to rewrite a whole ordinance for one organization, and I haven't seen a way that it really worked out well.
That's a good point. Maybe it's written for the second or the third person coming up based on what the one organization did. The MSU extension's subject to losing their funding from the county right now to be given to, I think, the sheriff for overtime that was taken away, and that would shut down their office over there, and I think they would have to go elsewhere, or they'd lose a secretary. There's some issues, so that's not a for sure thing anymore, but
there's groups that could take it over that are nonprofits, or they could become a nonprofit.
they could, I bet, slide under someone's umbrella.
I think they could if they
I guess
really.
that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier was, I haven't seen any effort on, other than putting my foot down and saying, if I don't get my way, I'm going elsewhere. And I guess that's not a real negotiable attitude presented by the farmer's market, in my opinion.
See, now in the fall, they put the sign out in front of Midas. I found that corner gets a whole bunch less stuff, and it didn't really look out of place on that corner, and you still saw it. A whole bunch less busyness on just one block down. And their sign was still there.
Chapin Street, right?
Yep.
The one on
Yep.
Midas.
A lot fewer pedestrians.
Right, not as many as, because of movie theater and all that, you got a boatload of people and.
So are we tipping everything
But-
over? Go ahead, sorry.
I don't know, I just commented on the last sign I saw, it was out in front of Midas, and, well, that's a good alternative, and it's still got the exposure. So I got part of me is hemming and hawing, okay, how about if we say, okay, it's permitted here, but that clock tower intersection is horrible.
If we go on the premise that Bob presented, in a sense, a grandfather clause, because they've been in operation for 20 years and they've had those signs out on the corner. It's my understanding that occasionally the farmer's market changes management, or people who run it, or
That I don't know. To my knowledge, it's been the same for a long period
the
of time.
same person.
Yeah. In terms of the grandfathering, something that I had actually brought this up some time ago, and there were some issues. The city attorney raised some issues with respect the way our ordinance, and this is not unusual, is worded, because there is a period, a rather extended period, in which there is no sign. Okay, so in other words, the sign is removed for so many days, really between seasons, almost a year. And so therefore, under our current ordinance, if a sign or if the use is not in effect for a certain period of time, then it automatically becomes null and void, so to speak. But, perhaps there is some way, because it has been a recurring type of activity, even though it's on a seasonal basis, there might be some, I'd have to talk to Mr. Homier, the city attorney, and get his thoughts on that.
Do you think we're tipping over our whole system, as Dave's indicated, to accommodate one group?
I think we are.
I do.
I do.
I think we are. I think there already is a fair proliferation. There's a lot of signs down there right now. And part of that is due to the fact that we've allowed individual merchants to put out sandwich board signs. And so a lot of them have done that over the past several years, and I think they like that opportunity.
They also, with all due respect to that, though, they also pay, taxes for parking lot
That's correct.
clearing. They pay,
Right.
an exorbitant amount to be down there. So, in my opinion, they have the right, to capitalize on that foot traffic in their sandwich board. Whereas a once a week or, a couple of times a week vendor does not.
Yeah, I do think there is a benefit in the allowance of certain off-premise signs, because a lot of things do happen that are not located on Mitchell Street, but because Mitchell Street is one of the primary arteries at least into the eastern side of the city, the downtown, that's where the traffic comes through. And once they come through, if they're not familiar with the shoreline, if they're not familiar with the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion, the high school, city park, and activities that are going on, it is helpful to be able to efficiently direct them in a safe and efficient manner. But again, I'm not real gung-ho on a proliferation of signs in the downtown either. Mm-hmm. The DDA, as you may recall, they felt things should remain as they currently are, basically with no changes. They felt things were working well, and
Yeah, but they contradicted themselves too by saying, we don't want any signs down here, but the farmer's market one's okay.
but they want, they want the
So to
farm
me,
market.
that's, you can't have your cake and eat it too, it's.
I don't think anyone objects to the farmer's market
No.
sign. It's just that
No.
if you go and legally allow it,
There.
then you're opening the whole can of worms, and perhaps the city could start sponsoring the farmer's market. I mean, why not? It's
I just need
certainly,
some direction from you so I can wrap this up in the form of either letting the council know we're not recommending no changes, or if we're gonna make a change, finalizing the language.
Don't you see us sponsoring it already? We're providing the location.
basically you do.
Yeah, you do.
So I guess there's lots of avenues like that could be explored to bring them into compliance with this ordinance without opening it up to everybody else.
Or do we want Mr. Adams to inquire with the head of the farmer's market on them checking on, right,
I'd be happy to chat with
to try and throw the ball back in their court for a little bit, like we were talking, can you give a little to help
Force
us?
some effort here,
Right.
and maybe they can't, and maybe they hit a dead end, and, then maybe we need to look at
I'd be
it.
happy to chat with her.
I think it's real important for us to deal with this prior to the summer, so they have notice.
Absolutely.
Huge.
That's really, I think, one of our big goals, is let's put an end to this, but this could come up again. We could
Yeah.
have 5 vendors down in the
Right.
city.
Yeah.
We only have 1 right now.
Right.
And this is, I don't know why we've only had 1 for so long, but there could be others easily down there that could apply and be accepted, and we'd be right back in the same spot. So it's not really people-oriented, it's,
Nope.
And if we decide to allow a certain number of signs on those intersections, there's no guarantee that future councils are going to give those signs to the farmer's market.
well, another idea is to let the staff handle it, which we did last summer, is say, you know what, let Jerry handle this, is basically what happened.
Well, I don't see a problem with that, as long as they have clear language, to go by.
And
That's fine.
he did handle it.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
I mean, if you'd care to table it again, I'd be happy to talk to the farm market folks, and see what we can find out. It's not gonna hurt another month.
You're gonna talk to the attorney about
And I'll talk to the attorney
grandfather
about
clause.
grandfathering. Take Mr. Peterson's comments.
The other question, I think it got raised either by me or I heard it mentioned in a previous meeting concerning this, was the vendor fees. I know that, do they pay a vendor fee down there to be in that parking lot, or does the city waive it?
The farm market, I believe they pay, I think it's a $300 vendor fee. The shoreline vendor, if you're a veteran, you pay nothing. Otherwise, it's $100.
It's $100, right? So the farmer's market pays
I think it's
$300
$300 a season, as I
for the
recall.
whole year, and how many vendors do they have in there?
Varies.
Between 10 and 15, as I recall. And then those vendors are charged, a certain amount of money to have a booth.
By the farmer's market. And that money goes to the farmer's market, not to the city.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they, how internally how they operate.
It's just been a tradition in our city too, just makes it worse for the position we probably should take, as it's adverse to the tradition and what we all want.
I would, you know, I would like to see some effort put forth by the farmer's market to see if they can change their status or whatever.
Just see, is it possible?
just to
Is it
investigate.
possible or not?
Okay, be happy to, if you'll table it, I'll do it.
Okay, so we,
When do you think we need to have this moved on, Jerry, by January, February's meeting?
Oh, yeah, we'll have something hopefully by next month.
right.
We're meeting early.
Because,
We're putting this one to bed.
I mean, like he says, once we decide it, it's gonna take a while to get it all in the motion and stuff before spring rolls around and they're in front of council
Put it
again.
on the table.
So Randy has made a motion to table it, to
Till the
give us
next
time to
meeting.
contact the city attorney as well as the farm market folks to get some feedback from them.
I would
Sounds good, second,
Dave? Okay, motion by Champlin, supported by Van Lente to table the proposed modifications to the sign ordinance, pending the opportunity, and hopefully this will be in December, the opportunity to discuss with the farm market folks other options that they might have in terms of their nonprofit status, and also to contact the city attorney to find out what we can do in terms of grandfathering pre-existing users such as the farm market.
and this the wayfinding signs, is that like off the table yet?
No, it's
or-
still on the table, but that's down the road.
Down the road, okay, because that'd be the easiest, but, yeah.
Okay,
Would it,
I'm sorry,
would it be prudent of us to put a time limit on that?
I'm going to do it in December for your December meeting.
Well, I mean, is that gonna give the farmer's market ample time with the
Yeah.
holidays and everything
Well,
to
I don't know about
investigate that? I guess maybe, you know, for us to make a determination one way or the other, regardless of what the farm market produces, should we say we're gonna resolve this by January or by February?
I
or-
hope you've got it resolved by January. Let's count on January. I don't think you have to put a time frame on it, but we'll work towards that.
Okay.
Okay, Peterson,
Yes.
Van Lente,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Smith,
Yay.
Champlin,
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes.
Putvin.
Yes.
Okay. And by the way, next month's meeting is not December 24th,
Oh,
Oh, come on.
unless you want to show up. The doors will be locked.
It's a quick
I
meeting.
believe it's,
Find a way
There's gonna
around
be
that.
wine and crackers here.
I think it's the 18th, which is Tuesday. I think the city council meets on the 17th. And the planning commission will be meeting on, I think we had rescheduled it earlier, the 18th. We'll send you out a notice just to remind you,
Okay.
way ahead of time. And I think we're going to have an application. Are we having an application for that one?
I might have a conflict that night.
Yeah, we have another special land use for you also at that meeting.
I might have a conflict that night, Jerry. In case you're looking for a quorum.
December 18th is a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday.
You go south.
And because the council meets on Monday, the
On
17th,
the
and
17th.
it's easier for us to move than them.
I won't be here, Jerry.
Okay, it's going to be important, because we'll need to re-advertise if we don't, it's a special land use, it's a family that wants to essentially operate what would you call it, Brian? A home, you might say, for young women in a residential location, and it's subject to a special use permit, so, we need at least 5 people to be here in order to have a quorum.
I could check my schedule.
So if you could, tomorrow we'll try to get a hold of you tomorrow, the next day, and if you think you can't make it, let us know and we'll reschedule that. I don't want them to show up and not have a quorum, if at all possible.
You know where the approximate region is in the city that's going to go?
Sure we do. What's
Proposed.
Mason Street?
That's a good place. Another idea I had, which I keep bringing up, what I feel is the city council's views, I think it'd be super important for them to hear, and they do read the minutes and sometimes see the meetings, and maybe seeing the meeting would be enough, but we've had several meetings on this, and I like merging boards together at some point so there can be an open discussion between everybody. The bathwater seems to go to a certain level that will balance out, and maybe there's a way that we can put our heads together. which is a little unusual because I sit on 2 boards and I'd be in kind of 2 seats. But as far as I'm concerned, that's just a thought to think about. If you want to engage with council, I'm sure they would be open to that because they are struggling with this just as hard as we are up here.
I would be down, I would be in for that.
Agreed.
Just an idea. Would that be something we
Might
could,
help expedite the situation.
maybe just think about that? It sounds like there's a possible majority that would agree.
Be great.
Maybe run it by the council on Monday,
Right.
Okay.
if you're into it. Down with it, is that what you're gonna say?
Sounds good. That's
time with
that's
my
all we have.
Oh,
Good for you.
do you want to?
Don't start a daycare.
Table items none. Board member comments?
Another
Anyone?
fine meeting.
Fine meeting. Hopefully
Captain.
everyone had a nice Thanksgiving, I hope.
Thank you, you too.
Any public comments? You're a public, no? Okay. Welcome. It's nice to see you. We don't see you very often. That's good.
I see him, he does a nice job.
Having said that, if everybody, we're good. Out.